Hi, I am Rachel. At the moment, my Uncle Derek is housing me. I'm 24 years old. It may seem strange to you. Anyone who notices a young woman residing with her uncle is likely to hear plenty of gossip. My backstory, though, is more nuanced than it first appears. My parents' marriage ended many years ago. They both proceeded to start fresh, with new spouses and houses. Those houses, however, were never truly mine, which is why I've been staying at Derek's place for quite some time. There will never be anyone else like my uncle in my life. I enrolled in my first piano class because of him. He purchased my initial vehicle. My bravery in applying to the conservatory was inspired by him, to be honest. My Uncle Derek isn't the only one. He is my mentor. Someone who appears to have a genuine grasp of my situation. What I'm about to tell you, though, was completely unexpected. Change can be gradual, can't it? You won't even realize it's there at first. However, all of a sudden something feels odd. I experienced that very thing. Derek has always had an air about him. He's always been captivating. He continues to exercise, maintain his health, and appear much younger than his 60 years. I can't help but be captivated by him. However, everything changed that day. I woke up from a brief nap and, to my surprise, he was waiting for me in the living room. Resting soundly on the couch, Derek is fast asleep. That day, his wife Candace was not at home. It was as if nothing had changed. Once again, a peaceful afternoon. I had that impression, however. I had no clue that my life was about to undergo a dramatic change the second I entered that room. Click the subscribe button and enable notifications if you're new to this, and appreciate listening to confessions like these. You won't believe the twist that's about to happen in this story. Derek lay on the couch, sound asleep. I stood motionless for an instant while his countenance took on an air of tranquility. As I saw him, an unexplainable whirlwind of emotions washed over me. I can't recall a time when I didn't admire Derek. However, that awe seemed to be evolving into something else as of late. Somehow I inched closer without even noticing. No matter what I tried, I couldn't stop my racing heart. After a brief moment of movement, Derek opened his eyes. As our eyes met, there was a brief hush. I made no attempt to get up. I felt completely immobilized. His expression shifted from bewilderment to composure for an instant. "Is that you, Rachel?" He spoke. He sounded kind but little dazed. "Are you all right? For what reason are you being perfectly silent?" His voice interrupted me, but I felt as though I had become completely absorbed in my own thoughts before I could reply. Well, I stammered when I woke up. You were sleeping when I walked in and my speech became choppy and unfocused. To keep from meeting his gaze, I wiggled my hands. According to Derek, who offered a subtle smile, you were observing me. He was simply inquisitive, not accusatory. Just what were you contemplating? A knot formed in my throat. I couldn't focus on anything. Completely non-existent. Even I didn't trust my own feeble mutterings. Thing is, you seemed at calm. Well, I suppose that's it. Derek sat up slowly, his face showing a mix of worry and curiosity. Is that you, Rachel? Do you feel all right? Do you have something to say to me? It brought tears to my eyes. I felt like I was falling apart from shame and bewilderment. I eventually confessed, my voice quivering, that I am unsure. All things have recently felt. That is very weird. Observing you has taken on a new quality. This took Derek by surprise. After a little period of silence, the expression of contemplation replaced the hint of strain on his face. Finally, he spoke to Rachel in his usual soothing, understanding voice. Our emotions might be deceiving at times. You should not put undue pressure on yourself to find a solution. Rest assured, I am present. Feel free to confide in me about anything going through your thoughts or heart. Aside from being reassuring, his soothing, sympathetic tone was also not easy. I couldn't find a way to calm the tempest within. Derek, I'm not sure. Thing is, every little thing might seem overwhelming at times. I have no idea who I am. He reached out and put his palm on my shoulder. Rachel, it's normal to feel puzzled. Rest assured, this place is secure. I will always treat you with kindness and understanding. We will discover the solution as a team, no matter what it is. The intensity of our connection hit me at that very second. However, what could be the outcome of that attachment? All confusion ensued. Derek narrowed his eyes slightly as he studied me, giving me that comforting look that he gave me every time we were together. Rachel, I don't understand what you're saying. His voice was low and calm as he whispered, "You can tell me." Ouch. My heart was racing, its beat becoming faster by the second. A tempest was raging inside of me, and I was at a loss for words. My mouth dropped open and my eyes widened, but I was unable to utter a word. Now what am I to say? What am I to do? No, I was stumped. To be sure, I was aware of one thing. I desired a shift in the status quo. Derek, my uncle. I wished we could go beyond our safe, casual relationship and express how much he meant to me. My jaw dropped as I prepared to speak. However, Candace's voice emerged from the doorway as I was ready to speak. "Here I am, Derek." I recoiled as if I had been discovered in the act of wrongdoing. My rapid retreat nearly caught me off guard. As I slowly turned around, I witnessed Candace casually entering the living room, smiling as always, carrying 2 grocery bags in her hands. "Oh, Rachel, you're here too," she exclaimed with a positive expression. "Are you two still together?" Without hesitation, Derek stood up straight. "Looks like Rachel caught me dozing off," he remarked with a hint of amusement. However, a warning-like flicker appeared in his eyes. At least for the time being, this discussion was concluded. I blinked rapidly. The reason I dropped by was to see how he was doing, I admitted. However, I was disappointed that my voice didn't come across as casual. I hoped she was oblivious. It appeared as though Candace was oblivious to the mounting tension. Everything continued as usual that day. We had dinner, Derek, Candace, and me. On a regular basis, she would be found in the kitchen getting things ready. But tonight, there was an uncanny consistency to everything. At the table, Derek and I pretended as if nothing had transpired. And just as before, the discussion moved at a natural pace. Candace chatted and chuckled. All was well when Derek answered with his customary kindness and tolerance. However, I couldn't shake this nagging feeling of unease, even though I didn't know why it was there. All was extraordinarily silent, uncomplicated, and innocent. I was under the impression that the night would pass quietly and safely. Things with Derek would take an unexpected turn tomorrow, following my piano recital. I didn't know what was ahead of me at that point. Something, though, was starting to move inside. Derek was staring at me, but it wasn't the kind of look an uncle would give. While we were eating, I couldn't help but stare at Derek's. As soon as our eyes connected, I would avert my sight, as if I had been caught in the act. My sense of discomfort persisted. Despite how straightforward everything appeared on the surface, a tempest was brewing. I kept staring at Derek as Candace spoke. Then I'd look away and then I'd glance back. I could feel something building, but I couldn't identify what it was. I finally cracked the code with something safe after much deliberation. "I have a piano recital at school tomorrow," I finally responded after what seemed like an eternity of hesitation. "You are invited. You would probably love it." "I have plans tomorrow," Candace remarked, her voice barely above a whisper as she nodded and smiled. "All day long, I will be in the company of a great buddy." An expression that appeared to convey everything crossed her face as she looked to Derek. "But you're not going to abandon her all by herself, are you?" For an instant, Derek looked over at me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but that expression had something. Despite his often composed demeanor, he made it clear that he wouldn't miss it. They seemed to know precisely what was going on in my head because they stayed for a bit too long. I ducked my head to avoid meeting his eyes, but I could feel them. Neither of us was prepared to identify the unspoken issue. Perhaps Derek could read my mind, but it seemed like too little, too soon to reveal everything. Preparation for my recital was complete the following night. It was the ideal, sophisticated, and uniquely me dress that I had chosen. The fabric was sheer and form-hugging, and it had lace accents that drooped gracefully from my shoulders. I had my long blonde hair tousled in gentle waves, and the lights made my emerald eyes glitter. I didn't feel exceptional for a very long time. I was adored. I wasn't expecting Derek to change the way he looked at me. Sure, there was awe, but there was also something more profound and distinct. No longer was it the expression of a normal overprotective uncle. Something about the intensity in his eyes was new to me. The intensity of the spotlights wasn't the only thing I felt as I stepped onto the platform. His gaze remained fixed on me the whole time. At that very second, there were eyes on me beyond those of the spectators. It was Derek, and I couldn't help but be drawn into the intensity of his stare. Derek and I strolled home together following the show. To me it was all just right. I still couldn't help but smile, and my face was radiating with joy. No one living with Candace was present. A friend had taken her in. Because of that, we had dinner alone. There was an implicit intimacy between us that had never existed before, and the atmosphere was laid back and easygoing. For the first time, as we took our seats at the table to dine, we felt completely alone with each other. Derek kept staring at me the whole time we were eating. Something more profound and intense was visible in his eyes. We were merely dining, but there was something more going on, something we were both reluctant to speak. As I made my way to my room at the conclusion of the night, I could still feel Derek's heavy stare following me. Without uttering a word, it seemed as though we were both aware that something had changed. His silence gave me the impression that he was about to speak. He was hesitant to say anything. He said, "Rachel," in a hushed voice. "Yesterday, your intended message. Thank you." I felt my heart racing. I tried to remain calm, but an overwhelming sense of both fear and exhilaration washed over me. It was all a mystery to me. All I could do was wait. Out of nowhere, Derek reached out and grabbed my hand, bringing me firmly back to the present. All other concerns appeared to diminish. Two of us were all that were there. His gaze had a profound intensity that left me feeling both firmly planted and utterly exposed. It evoked both a sense of tranquility and an electric current. There seemed to be no turning back the clock on whatever was transpiring between us. It seemed like everything was only getting started. His voice was low and a little trembling as he whispered to Rachel. As his grip on my hand grew tighter, I couldn't tear my gaze away from his. As we drew nearer, the distance between us vanished. His breath was palpable because of how near we were. I could feel our lips meeting at that very second. He drew nearer and nearer, leaning in slowly with his eyes closed. I felt my heart about to explode as the distance between us shrunk. Everything else seemed to fade away as Derek and I savored this intimate time. There was a pause in time when our lips met. Everything seemed so genuine and intense. My entire being quivered, and every feeling I possessed appeared to intensify with each passing second. However, a sound suddenly emerged in the midst of it all. It jolted us out of our reverie, albeit it was initially muted. We were being watched. We were confused for an instant, but as we slowly spun around, we saw Candace's black eyes peering out of the doorway into the dim light, sneering at us. Everything changed for us in that split second. It was too late by the time Derek and I exchanged frantic looks. Standing there with a look of bewilderment and grief on her face, Candace finally spoke up. "Are you Derek? Is that you, Rachel? What in the world is happening here?" Her voice was harsh and angry as she made her demand. Everything became incredibly delicate and susceptible to disintegration at that particular moment. As Derek stepped back, his hold on my hand loosened, and he inhaled deeply. His expression changed to one of apparent bewilderment. His expressionless lips betrayed his inability to speak. Something had to be said, though. "Are you Candace? Are you okay?" His voice was composed yet labored as he inquired. She appeared to get even furious after asking that question. "Were you implying that I was at home?" She raced into the room, her eyes blazing with anger as she shouted. "Seriously, Derek, what were you thinking? Please tell me what I'm looking at. You two, what brings you to this place?" Her anger was palpable as her voice rose and quivered with each word. "Rachel," her shock was evident as she proceeded. "Were you both too busy to pause and consider? How on earth are you able to be completely at ease with this? This is completely incorrect, isn't it?" With each resounding phrase, her voice slammed into the room. "You were my husband, Derek. This isn't an innocent slip-up," she yelled out. "It's unforgivable." As she threw her hands in the air, her wrath evident throughout her body. "Every single one of us has our limits, and you've clearly exceeded all of them." Tension settled over the room. Derek remained silent and his expression turned grave. My emotions were completely out of control as I stared at the floor. Candace's yelling made the situation much worse. It was becoming more confusing. It was getting much messier. In an apparent effort to regain his balance, Derek stood up and took a deep breath. "I didn't know you were home," he said again, his voice kind but tense to Candace. Forgot I was at home, did I? With an even more twisted expression of wrath, Candace snapped. She approached us with purpose, her presence palpable as she drew nearer. She seemed on the verge of exploding from the rage that had taken over her gaze. Were you at home or what? Her voice quivered with fury as she yelled. Derek, what on earth were you thinking? The devil must be in the details, right? Certainly with my daughter. Please tell me what you're doing here. Her wrath was evident in her trembling lips as she spoke. Is that so, Rachel? As if attempting to rouse herself from a trance, she persisted. When were we last in eye contact? How on earth are you able to be completely at ease with this? Explain it to me. This is completely incorrect, isn't it? Were they an uncle and niece? What on earth are you thinking? The echo of her words shook the very foundation of the place. You were my husband, Derek. Nothing can be dismissed like this. This is totally inappropriate. With a furious wave of her fists, she spat. Her rage was so intense that it was virtually spilling out of her eyes. You two have exceeded my restrictions, which are set for everyone. Suddenly, there was utter quiet in the room. Derek lowered his head and remained silent. My emotions seemed to be in utter chaos as I gazed at the floor. The stifling tension was only intensified by Candace's yelling, which was having the opposite effect. Nothing was getting better, in fact things were getting more complicated. Candace shook uncontrollably and shot Derek one last angry look before she shook her head. She found it difficult to maintain a steady voice. No matter what you decide, I refuse to spend another minute in this place, she replied, her words biting and piercing. Her eyes revealed a lifetime of hurt and disappointment that she had bottled up. My apologies, Derek. In all candor, it's your fault, she said, her voice quivering with resentment. With a dismissive wave of her hand, she rushed out of the room, unable to control her emotions any longer. In her wake, the door banged shut, breaking the tension-filled stillness. I remained motionless, taken aback. The rapid escalation and subsequent swift resolution of the situation was difficult to comprehend. Derek drew back a step, his gaze falling to the floor. He was speechless, as if he had no idea what to say. Our already chaotic relationship became much more emotionally fraught when Candace left. While the house was quiet, it was far from tranquil. The kind of quiet that dragged on like unspoken burdens, the echoes of feelings too raw to process. I wish Derek and I could just put this behind us, forget about it and carry on as a couple. I was swept up in a tornado of feelings, stuck in a universe that felt entirely upside down. Everything transpired at a breakneck pace. There was something fundamentally wrong with it, and we were both aware of it. Being around him and experiencing the same feelings I had for him was a jumble of unnecessary emotions. Even so, they succeeded. Simultaneously, the burden of guilt was always there, reminding me of how intricate and interconnected everything was. Make sure to subscribe and enable notifications if you would like to hear more stories like this one. That way, you will be the first to know when the next episode is available. Your support in the form of likes and comments is invaluable. Further, they motivate me to put pen to paper. I would be very flattered if you could tell me in the comments where nation you are listening from. We will release the next part soon. Keep an eye out for more updates.